We are live with Office Hours, my YouTube series thing where I answer your questions about cameras and productivity and being a creative and whatever else you want to talk about, because I got time. And so I don't have any questions from viewers this week or last week or the weeks before. So we're just gonna go to Reddit and we're gonna answer questions, and then yeah. Oh, we do have a viewer. Hey nerd, thank you. That's from my girlfriend. She's so supportive. I told her to check. Oh, she's got a question. What is your question? Is it gonna type? Is she gonna type it? Why are you such a dork? Aw, and then a heart. How romantic. Anyway. Why am I such a dork? I don't know. I think it's because when I grew up, I watched Star Wars too many times. We rented it at Blockbuster all the time, and my dad was always like, "You gonna rent that again?" I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna rent Empire Strikes Back," because we rented Empire Strikes Back like nonstop. So, and my dad did not care for that because he thought we were gonna turn into dorks, which ended up being kind of true. Anyway, so let's go to Reddit. Let's find some questions. And we're gonna answer them. We're gonna go r/videography because that's what I know the most about, I suppose. Okay, there's a way to go find questions. Let's see, where can we find the questions? Any camcorders with 3 or more XLR inputs? The Sony's lines, like the FS7 has a backpack that can do it, and the FX6 and the FX9, you could take that little thing you can get for the FX3 and the A7s, and you could stick it on top, and the hot shoe has connections. So that would be your options there. But good luck fucking finding one, because those things are crazy backordered. Let's see, what else do we got? Let's find questions. Finding more questions. Advice on minimizing shake on long lens video setup. Let's see what this is about. I'm currently using a Sony a7 and a 200 to 600 lens on a fluid head. The setup is adequate, however, I find that it is very punishing with shaky footage if I ever touch the lens or camera during recording. As it is, the camera lens is only fixed to the tripod via the lens tripod foot. I'm now thinking that my best bet to eliminate vibrations would be to mount the rig via a base plate and rails where I could add lens support. That's a good idea, and also a follow focus system. My main question is whether I should fix the rails to the lens foot or to the camera itself, provided I also attach a lens support. With the A7, that camera's pretty small, and the 200 to 600, I haven't seen it, but I'm guessing it's quite large. So yes, I would mount the lens to the rails and then the rails to the tripod. What you can also do is get what's called a gimbal. I know most people are familiar with the 3-axis gimbals, like a Ronin or a Movi. But there's actually something called a gimbal, which is a dumb version of that, where you can put the camera on a thing, balance it, and then it was meant for like aerial photos. So it takes the shake out by essentially the same principle that a 3-axis gimbal works, but it doesn't have motors. It's not automated. It should probably only cost like $200-300. So if you're gonna be using a big ass lens like that, that would be my advice. Would be to get yourself a dumb gimbal, or you could try your luck with a 3-axis gimbal. It might work. I don't know. You can figure out how to balance that, which would probably be a giant pain in the ass with how big a 200 to 600 lens is. Let's see. What else? Best video light for travel trip in the budget of $100. There's not going to be a lot of options. The Aperture MC or the Nanlite, whatever it's called. It's like this big. I have 2 of them, and they're great. Both of those are great. You can't go wrong with those. I honestly can't think of anything. For $100, you can also get like flashlights, which is something I've used in the past, and it surprisingly works pretty well. The color accuracy isn't great, but it works, and you could probably get a little more light that way. Let's find more questions. Boom, boom, boom. Recommended key light for a static shoot. Hi, I'm currently looking for 2 key lights to light an area of about 30 by 30 centimeters, so not that big. After looking at some videos, I came across the newer CN216, which looked perfect, but it is battery only, which is a deal breaker for me. The scene will not move around at all, and it is on a table, so they need to be smaller side of things. Since the subject is small and will be close to the lights, I think a soft light would be preferable. Also, I'm working on a budget of about 80 pounds for the lights. Clamp lights. Clamp lights, household bulbs, frost over the thing, done. Don't overthink it. You just get any lamp, really, if you want, you know. You can put work lights through a bed sheet. There's a lot of options, and I think don't overthink it. Put the table next to a window, do it for free that way. I mean, there's a lot of ways. It really just depends on what you want the light to look like. If you want a high key thing, or if you want dramatic. Oh, hello. Miss Sabrina just said, how are we doing? Oh, I don't know if I was supposed to say their name, because they have a fake name on they have the avatar name. What do you call that? A screen name, username. I'm doing well, to answer your question. Let's see. I don't know how people. Some people are like, I have a screen name and I don't want people to know my real name, and so I never know what to do with that stuff. I'm like, oh, it's Jeff. Hey, Jeff. And it's like, ravioli eater, 420. That's Jeff. Anyway. We are answering questions today. Looking for new editing software. Any recommendations? DaVinci Resolve. It's free. That'd be my guess. Or you can pay a bunch of money for Premiere, which is what I use. But I use Premiere not because... okay, good. Sabrina's good. I use Premiere not because it's the best one, but it's because what I know how to use. And because I pay money for Lightroom and Photoshop anyway. I might as well just pay for the whole cloud. I learned how to edit on Sony Vegas, and I like Sony Vegas a lot, or I did, but I haven't actually edited on it in like 10 years now. But Sony Vegas it worked really well for me 10 years ago. I don't know if it still is great. Oh, we got a sneaky one. Heard of DaVinci before. So DaVinci started as like a color grading platform, and it's still really well known for its color grading, but they've added a lot of, Vegas sucks. I liked it, I don't know. They have added a lot of editing features, and now a lot of people edit with DaVinci. I have it on Steam, and all it does is crash nowadays. Oh, that's too bad. It worked great when I used it. I mean, again, 10 years ago. What I liked about Sony Vegas is that a lot of the hotkeys made sense, and there is one hotkey in particular. It was you hit the S key, and it did something called split, where it just made a cut at the playhead. And Adobe has that, but it's called Add Edit, and it's like a 3-key push. So I remapped it to S, so now I can edit like I used to in Vegas. I think that's the only thing I've really carried over. But Vegas works really well, or it did. Apparently not. Premiere works good if you got the money for it. If you don't have the money for it, DaVinci is free. Give that a shot. I know people have been using Blender to edit, which I know is like more 3D modeling. So I don't know. It feels like you have to jerry rig it. Used to use Vegas a lot. Video, all it's done is crash. Yeah. Try DaVinci Resolve because it's free, and if that works for you, then you don't spend your money. And if you don't like it or it's not working for you, then try like a free trial of Premiere, because I think you can get Premiere for like, if you know you're still a student, so you can use a student email. You could probably get it for like $10 or $20 a month, which is kind of a lot, but it's also not. I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, I pay $60 a month, but I'm also getting like all these programs. You know, like cost of doing business, I guess. When you think about how the money basically just comes in as like, my cameras just make money. They're like money printers, and so paying $60 a month is like, well, cost of doing business. You know, like other businesses have lights. Thanks for the recommendation. No problem. That's what I'm here for. Answering questions and drinking Zevia. One day I want to be sponsored by Zevia. It's my goal in life. All the other cool guys are sponsored by Mountain Dew and Red Bull, but I'm going to be sponsored by the one that's like the health market soda. I'm drinking cherry cola today. It's pretty good. It's not that good, but it is. I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, if you're trying not to drink soda, this is really the only alternative that kind of tastes like soda. Ooh, more questions, more questions. We're going to answer so many questions today. Those are really the one to ask. Nothing else. I've been sitting on a couch playing SNES games, watching Supernatural. I watched Supernatural one time while I was at the doctor's office, and it felt like a soap opera. But thank you, Sabrina. I hope you have a good day, too. That's my little take on. She's not going to like that I called it a soap opera. But it is. Supernatural's a soap opera. Girlfriend keeps walking through in the shot. Secret girlfriend walking through the shot. More questions. A7 III focus is blurry up close. I have a G Master 24 to 70mm lens. AF is on. For example, at a wedding, I was trying to film up close within 3 to 6 inches the bridegroom's rings, but it never would focus on them or anything for the matter. The whole screen was blurred. Any idea how I overcome this? I assume this is a simple beginner mistake fixed. Every lens has a minimum focus distance, and 99% of the time it's gonna be way bigger than 3 inches and probably bigger than 6 inches. You would need a macro lens, and then, like, even then, you probably, like a macro, like a 100mm macro, I feel like I was still 12 inches. We'll just Google this. Canon 100mm macro lens minimum focus distance. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, so even on a macro lens on the Canon 100mm, it's 11.81 inches. So you're never gonna be able to get 6 inches. If you want like a close-up, use a macro lens and then shoot in 4K and deliver in 1080. And there goes the dog. He heard stories happening. So that's my advice, is to just kind of know your equipment, and know the limitations and test stuff. I think getting a close-up of the rings, that's kind of a hard thing. You could also get extension tubes, which are cheaper than a macro lens, and you could just stick them on what you already have. You could also do something called lens whacking, or free lensing. It's got a lot of different names, but essentially what you do is you disconnect the lens from the camera, and then you can kind of like tilt shift it, and that lets you get closer. So that's another option. But then, like, if you're filming, the sensor's gonna be honest, it's gonna be pulling dust. You're gonna fuck your sensor up. Like, it's not gonna break your sensor, but you're gonna have to go get your sensor cleaned, and that's like $75. So who wants to do that, right? Just get a macro lens or rent one for like $30 for the weekend. Oh, more questions. Recording audio and video for YouTube. Should I start singing these? I don't have a good singing voice. Hey, so I am looking to start a YouTube channel using my iPhone 13 Pro, a tripod, and sitting at my desk recording audio with my Shure SM7B microphone. How would I record my audio with the microphone and make sure it matches with the video I am taking? Is there some sort of program by which the microphone plugs directly into an audio interface? So what you would do is you would slate, which basically means make a loud noise. The clapperboards. And then your iPhone will have that noise, and your microphone will have that noise, and then your editing program, you just put them together. As far as how you would get your SM7B directly into your iPhone, which would probably be ideal for you, well, you have an audio interface. If it's got a headphone out, you could try that, but there might be a delay. So you could test that. And if the delay is not significant enough for you to care, then aces, you're good to go. But if there is a delay, you're gonna have to do it the old school way and sync it in post. It's really your only option there. Let's see what else. Rode VideoMic Pro Plus. Lots of noise from the cable when it's touch moved. That's every audio cable. Don't touch them. If you touch the cable at all, if there's any slight movement, it causes a knocking, banging sound on the microphone. Tapping the cable sounds like you were tapping the mic itself. Yeah, don't touch, especially the tiny ones. There's always gonna be issues. Try not to move the microphone cables if you don't have to. XLR cables are a little more immune from that, but even XLR cables still do that sometimes. Which usually means there's a short in the XLR cable, you need to replace it. But with those tiny cables, I feel like that's always going to be an issue. So don't touch them. Don't. Mic recommendations for live streaming a wedding. Hi all, I'm going to be doing a multicam live streaming of a wedding in a couple months. That is a fucking terrible idea. Don't. There's so much that could go wrong with that. Holy shit. Anyway, so their friends across the world can tune in. The problems being, one, the separately booked wedding photographer or videographer will be miking up the groom and officiant for their own audio, so it might be tricky to have two lavs attached to each of them. Mine would be on a wireless pack. The videographer would be recording locally. It doesn't seem like they want to use my audio from when I talk to them. I wouldn't either, because why would you want to use another person, a person who agreed to that? I wouldn't be like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that. Let's see. The bride doesn't want to be mic'd at all. That's all brides. Brides are never going to want to be mic'd. So get that out. Your best bet is maybe you can mic the bouquet, but unless you have some fancy skills with that, you're not going to want to fuck with that. It's an unplugged wedding, so there's no soundboard I could steal audio from. I was wondering if there's any recommendations of a mic that could sit between all of them relatively discreetly that can pick up the audio from all three people. Put it on the pastor. Why is that not one of your options? Because the pastor will just do whatever you tell him to. So you put the mic on the pastor on the outside, and it should pick up everything. You might have to ride the faders a bit. But let's go back to the whole idea of live streaming a wedding, and it was multicam. Oh boy, that's such a bad idea. If the internet doesn't work, I would not. If somebody asked me to live stream something like that, I'd be like, no, that's just not gonna happen. What I would guarantee is I can be there, but I do not guarantee this works because who knows what kind of internet they're gonna have there. Even if you go test it day of, when you get people on the cell phone, everyone joining the guest network, who knows if it's gonna work. If you can't find a hardware, which you probably can't, you're not gonna have tech support, especially if it's at a church. There's so many ways that could fail, and that you just be completely out of your hands. I would recommend not ever live streaming a wedding, aside from I got a phone, it's going out via cellular signal, and I got a Rode Video Go into the phone, and that's probably the extent of what I would offer someone, because I would know with a lot more certainty that it would work. But even then, I'd be skeptical if you didn't have a LiveView Solo or something dedicated to stream outside of the church's network. Would not recommend. Shooting a wedding in general is kind of stressful, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So I don't think I would recommend you do that. Let's find some more questions. Okay, adjusting out of reach light angle. I just purchased an Aputure 60X for weddings, and when I have it run up to full height on a stand, I can't adjust the angle, not being 7 feet tall and all. Is there a solution to be able to keep the yoke loose and have a small pole attached to avoid lowering it every time I need to tweak the angle? Don't put it up 7 feet. Have a chair next to it so that you can hop on the chair and adjust it. These would be my options. I don't know. To do it quickly, I can't think of anything else. I don't know. I think if you know the angles you want to hit, I guess I'm confused by the question, because if if it's like this, if it's up 7 feet, it's going to be downward. And I suppose maybe you might want it up a little bit for a further throw. But it seems like I would just buy 2, and then you would be able to cover more distance. I don't know, and then you could have them on remotes. There's not a good way to do that, though, aside from having an assistant, or, you know, which would probably be better anyway, to have an assistant that could, and then you could put a spotlight attachment on it, and then do that kind of thing, which could be cool. But yeah, I don't think there's really anything other than, you know, DJ lights that have, but that's so much equipment for a videographer to bring to a wedding. Like, it's not realistic. If you were charging a bunch of money, maybe you could hire a lighting guy to come and bring all this stuff. Let's look for more questions. I need to get a few lavs. What's your recommendation? I used the Sennheiser portable lavs for years and need to replace what I have. Before getting what I had, I want to see what others thoughts I'd be getting for something less expensive. I don't want to go more expensive. GH4s. There you go. Boom, done. Or you can look at the new Zoom BT2s, which look really interesting, but they're not wireless. They are lavs and they're very tiny, but they have the 32 float audio, which is cool because basically the audio can't clip, which is amazing. And so the batteries apparently last a long time, and they're only like $200. I'm gonna get 1 or 2 of them myself. Haven't pulled that trigger yet, but they're very tiny. Lav goes in, hit record, just let it run all day. That's what I've been told. It'll run for like 12, 13, 14 hours. And then you could just use 32-bit float to fix it. So, but there's no monitoring, which is a bit of a hassle, and it could be potentially dangerous. But I think if you're just doing interviews or something, I would trust it. Or like short films, you know. Ooh, more questions. Shooting a play this weekend. What's my best bet to get good audio? You want boundary mics on the stage. That's your best. I'm very concerned about audio, as the title suggests. Available to me are Rode Wireless Go 2s and 2 wireless micros. Shooting with the C100 Mark II, I was thinking maybe I can also plug in an audio interface and capture sound directly with the Wireless Go, but I don't know. I was so focused on getting this opportunity for my show reel without thinking about the audio aspect, and now I'm panicking. Help. Option A, if you want this for your show reel and that's more important, take whatever money you're getting and hire an audio guy. Done. Don't have to worry about it. Option B, rent some boundary mics. They're like these mics that look like dinner plates, I guess. They're cheap. You can rent them for fucking nothing. And then just set up 3 on the front stage. And it'll work great. I shot a kids play once, and I hired an audio guy, and he was like, oh yeah, we'll just use boundary mics. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And that's all he brought was like these 3 things, and he just set them on the stage, and he just rode the faders, and it fucking sounded amazing. So that's my advice. Also, again, hire an audio person, because that guy mixed it for me, and it only cost me $300, and it was the best money I could have spent, because it was like CD quality, like audio. Like you could have sold recordings of it. Anyway, the problem was all the kids were wearing masks, so the audio was a little muffled. But COVID, this was during COVID, and they wanted to record it, but it was awesome. This is it. Nope, I already talked to him. I'll message him back later. Got a text message in the middle of my live stream. How dare you? More questions. Just got the Sony FX3. It feels like something's wobbly, rattling, and lightly shaking. Is this normal, or should I have it replaced? That doesn't sound normal, so have it replaced. Let's see. Interview recording setup for seniors. What are some good Android smartphone mics and video recording apps for a 2-person interview? This is for our senior volunteers who will conduct oral history in a nursing home residents about their lives. The volunteers are comfortable with using smartphones but need an app that is easy or automatic and can work with an external mic to get decent audio. Good Android smartphone mics. So you could use Rode Go, Video Go, whatever it's called. They're like little wireless and they work via Bluetooth. And you would stick one on their, collar somewhere in there. and then it would go into the phone, or it's like a Video Go Micro, which is just like a tiny little one, but you might need some kind of cage for the phone to have the mic work. As far as apps, you can use Filmic Pro if that's available for Android. I know it's on iPhone. I have only had an iPhone for the last like 10 years, so I don't really know Android apps very well. But any microphone should go in. I think if this is a short run thing, I would go to your local library and rent a video camera, because they probably have a library near you probably has a video camera that you can check out, and then you just use that and just show them, set everything to auto, and you're like, flip this switch, push this button, and that will probably get you better results for less effort, less money, and less failure. That would be what I would do. DocuCamera recommendations. A7 III seems to have a lot of shakiness. That's only if you shake it. Are these docu-style video cameras better? Yes. I don't want to be bothering with the settings all the time and focus solely on the subjects. I have an A7 III, but I think I prefer a simpler setup. I want to film without glide cams or anything. For travel docus, Sony FX6, perfect camera. It's got internal stabilization. The autofocus is fucking bonkers. It's got a really good, like, I don't know what you call it. Like a LUT, I guess. The Sony Venice color looks awesome. And you could probably set it to like auto everything. And yeah, it's got the microphone even built in. And the microphone does pretty good. And the handle. The problem with the Sony FX6 is you cannot find it right now because everybody loves them. And they're backordered forever. And Sony can't make them fast enough because there's supply limits on like those chips. So good luck. Try to find a Sony FX6. Rent one if you can't. That'd be my suggestion. Let's see. Can a polarizing filter help to reduce reflection from my spectacles when speaking in front of a camera? It should. You could also not wear glasses. You could also tip your glasses lower, or you can put the light higher. Those are kind of the three levers you can pull. Generally, we just push the light up higher, height-wise. And that usually overcomes glasses, or at least it makes it a lot less bad. You could also, I suppose, bounce the light, but you need a lot more light to do bounces. But it looks better, and it looks sweet, and I love bounce light. Bounce light is the best light. That's what I think. More questions. Let's see, more questions. Best camera for filmmaking under $750. Hi, I'm a student at filmmaking college, and I'm looking to buy a camera that begin my career and use for the next couple of years. I've been saving money for about a year and gathered $750. Actually, 150,000 pesos are from Argentina, but that's conversion. I've been trying to get a professional camera. It doesn't matter if it's an old model or if it's used. Up to now, the only candidate is the Canon M2200. But maybe some has a better. A friend of mine found a PM F3 for 700, so maybe there's something. It's meant to be used for filmmaking, not blogs. The most important thing I'm looking for is 1080 at 24 and 60 frames per second, and interchangeable lens. Hope that helps. Thanks. You might be able to get. You could definitely get like a used Canon 5D Mark III for 700, and then you could probably get like a 50mm lens, and maybe a 35 too. $700 is kind of tight. Depending on what phone you have, you might just start with your phone and take that $700 and put it into audio and lighting. Because if you gave me only $700, I have an iPhone X, I think, 10 or 11. I don't remember which one I have. But I would take this and its camera with Filmic Pro, which is only like $20, and $700 worth of lighting and or audio equipment over having a $700 camera. Because the shittiest camera with good lighting will produce a good image. The best camera with shitty lighting will not. And if you don't have good audio, you're fucked either way. So spend your money there. Don't buy a camera. Buy lights and audio. That would be my advice. Or rent stuff. $700 is a pretty good rental budget. Especially if you're a student, sometimes you could talk to a rental and be like, I'm a student making a student film. Can you give me a deal on this? No, like, yeah, fuck, whatever, why not? You know, they usually like, the rental houses are usually pretty good. They'll want to help you out because they know if you're a good customer for life. And if not, fuck them. Find somebody that will give you a deal on a rental. More questions. More questions. Now, a lot of these questions are like really specific. Like, help with this exact, the Kodak Pix Pro AZ421 camera. Like, what? I don't know. Throw it away. Should I buy a cheap practice drone as a first drone? Hi, I want to get into using drones as an additional tool in my videography work. I have never used a drone before. I definitely will buy a drone with 10-bit on the long run because I think 8-bit isn't flexible enough for higher quality results. Good point. It is probably going to be the Air S2 because it is the cheapest 10-bit drone I know, and I like the color of the footage. Would you advise me to buy a cheaper drone first to practice? Could you recommend something, or should you directly buy the Air S2? As someone who's flown, I've had 3 drones in my life. They're a headache, and here's what I feel about drones and gimbals is like they can produce really good results, but you run into this thing where sometimes you're on set and the technology doesn't work and you look like a fucking asshole. And so I don't want to look like someone who doesn't know what they're doing. So I don't do drones and I don't do gimbals. I hire other people for that. I have gimbals. I bought gimbals. And in general, I don't really like gimbal shots because I feel like they're not, it's just too much. You know what I mean? Like you get these flowing shots, you're like, oh, it's cool. But it's like, if you took snapshots of like every bit of that frame, you're like, is it really cool? Is there just a lot happening to confuse your brain? Like they're generally not good shots, is what I think. And with drones, it's a unique perspective, so that's better. But again, it's like, I mean, maybe that's because I live in Nebraska where it's always windy. And the drone isn't going to fly very well a lot of the time. And maybe I'm just making excuses because it's like technology I don't understand and didn't put any effort into like really deep diving. But I have been on sets where like the gimbal just doesn't work and it like toasts the shot. So it's like, if we're gonna do a tracking shots, I'd rather set up a dolly. It's gonna work better. Let's get a Dana dolly. Let's get some tracks down, something, as opposed to a gimbal, or you call a Steadicam op. You know, when you have that as an option. What else? So for this specific person, I would say just buy the drone because the drones these days are so easy to fly. You don't really need a practice drone. It's got so much obstacle detection, and it's going to work for you. It's going to fly. It's going to be very easy. It's going to keep its position pretty well. And then one day it's just not going to do any of that shit. It's going to go right into a fucking tree. Happened to me twice. So I don't fuck with drones anymore. It's too much money to like have the technology decide it wants to crash. Yeah. But I have been thinking about buying a drone again just for fun. Don't tell anybody, because I don't want people to know that I have a drone, because I don't want them to be like, you got a drone, right? And I'll be like, no, I don't. Call this guy. And if you're in Omaha, Mark Hoffman or Matthew, can't think of his last name, but if you need his phone number, let me know and I'll give it to you. That sounded... If you need anybody's phone number, just let me know and I'll give you their phone number. No, Matt's a good guy. He flies really good, and so does Mark Hoffman. Anyway, I guess I probably know a couple other drone ops, but those are the 2 I always recommend because I know they're both freelancers, and everyone else I know that flies drones generally has like other jobs. So I'm like, we'll go give it to the drone guys who are specifically drone guys, and they'll do great work. Histogram is inaccurate. You're probably reading it wrong. Recently watched a video by Gerald Undone who explained that the histograms on Sony mirrorless cameras are inaccurate if you're filming in log or HLG. Is this true, or did I misunderstand his point? Trying to work out how to best expose to the right when shooting. I guess the option is zebras. You can use zebras. I guess what this Gerald Undone person is trying to explain is that the histogram on a Sony mirrorless camera will either show you the log histogram, even though it has a LUT on it, or it's showing you the LUT histogram, even though it's being shot in log. And either way, it's not going to be what you want. So what I would do is get a monitor that you know and trust, and the output from your camera into the monitor, and whatever's on the monitor is what the histogram is going to say. And that's better. I use like a small HD 702 bright, and it works very well. And it's got so many tools, and you can use false color histogram, waveforms. Those all will work for you, and that way, the bigger screen too. I'd get a monitor if you can swing it. If you can't swing the small HD, the Blackmagic Video Assist works very well, and it has a lot of tools. I'm not entirely sure all the tools, but I'm 90% sure it has a histogram or a waveform. So that would be what I would do. Let's see. H6 backup recording. Does the Zoom backup feature prevent loss in a result of file corruption, or is it just for poor audio? Poor audio, that's it. If you want redundancy, what you can do is go headphone out. You can either do headphone, so they have the Zoom 6, you can go out the headphone into a wireless, and then into your main camera, and then you're capturing audio that way as a backup, or you can go headphone out into like a Zoom H1, or that BT2 thing I was talking about earlier. And in doing that, you will have a second recording device. I like sending it direct to the camera because then it's already synced, and most of the time it works well enough that you can just use that audio. And if something goes wrong with the H6, you'll know instantly, which is very helpful because the audio in your headphones from the camera will shut off. So that way you know something ain't going right. What's your dream kit? Company I'm soon to work for has asked me to build a dream kit. I'm shooting talking heads, stock, and possibly webinars and light commercial work. Unlimited money if I can justify the purchase, and practically unlimited computing power. I've got a million ways I want to play, but I'm curious how solo in-house videographer kit that's capable, practical to operate solo. Only limitation is the solo bit. I'm not super keen on a 20 kilo red that needs focus puller and crew. The FX6, I fucking love that camera. I would get 3 of them, 1 to just leave in the studio and 2 to just take with me. And that way you could do a 3 camera multicam if you ever need that. And then get like an ATEM Pro or the ATEM TV Studio or whatever it's called. It's like a rack mounted one for doing live streams if that ever came up. And then for lights, I would probably try to get some tube lights, like the Astera tubes, or you can go with like the Nan lights, or Aperture's making some tube lights now, which might be interesting because they're very light, which is nice, and they have a really good, because you can get long ones. I really like the quality of light that comes out of tube light. The problem with Kino Flows is that they were too big. Like you had the ballast and the whole thing, but now that it's just the tube, way better. The power output isn't great on some of those, but I think it's good enough if you can control the room. And then I would also probably get 1 or 2 of those Aperture like 300Xs. And then I think between like a 3 light tube light kit or a 4 light tube light kit and an Aperture 300 and a nice softbox, you pretty much be able to light almost anything. Anything you do with it is a single thing. And then I would probably also get a DSLR. I like Canons, so the Canon R6, Canon R5. Or if you want to stick with Sony, that way your lenses are all the same system, you get like an A7R, whatever, A7R4, whatever they're up to these days. I don't really follow the Sony DSLRs too much. That would be my recommendation for my dream kit. Also, maybe a drone. People like them. And maybe a gimbal. Again, people like them. Or an easy rig. Those would make your life a little easier. Definitely get a monopod and tripods for everything. Oh, let's see. More questions. This question is, can I mount my camera, DJI or DSLR, outside my camera, specifically on my rooftop? Is that legal? If it's illegal, we have done it many times without getting arrested. I don't think anyone would stop you. I think, that's really going to be a city-to-city question, because some cities might require you to have a permit for a lot of things. And the cop might just tell you to stop doing what you're doing. It's always a possibility, but I think realistically, that's probably won't come up. I don't think you'll have a problem with it. I think the police are a little too busy handling other things, but you never know. Sometimes cops are jerks and they'll pull you over anyway. But as far as I know, at least here in Omaha, Nebraska, we've done it a bunch of times and we've never gotten in trouble. Video shoot lighting question. Hello, I have a shoot coming up and I'm in charge of ordering our equipment. We're shooting a skincare lifestyle campaign in the style of this video. Very soft, even lighting. Would someone be able to advise me from this list what I should be ordering? I'm quite new to lights. You see, they've got a whole big list of stuff. 4,000 watt HMI kit. You don't need that, probably. Yeah. I don't think I would have any of this. Like, it's all like a bunch of like HMIs and like 2K Fresnels. Like, brother, is this all you got to choose from? Because if it's beauty, what you're really gonna want is you're gonna want very soft light, which is gonna just be diffused like crazy. The easiest way to do beauty light is with a ring light, as you probably know. Right now I've got 2 white and it looks pretty good. If we take one of these down, that's not really black, but if we bring that up, see now it's way darker, and then we can bring back up this white screen, whereas if you had the 2 white, a little more evenly lit. So if you think about that, what I would do is get like it's what's called clamshell lighting, where you think you have a very soft source above the camera and then a very soft source below the camera, and so it's working like a ring light but like way fucking bigger, and then have the camera kind of coming through like a small slit in the situation, and then you just light the background high key, like a normal high key background. So the actual lights you get matter less, and it really becomes about how much power you need for the space you're using and what you're trying to light. Is it a close-up? You probably don't need much power, but if it's like a full body shot, then you're gonna need a lot of power. So it's a pretty vague answer, sorry. Let's see. Producing a video cast like the Joe Rogan podcast. Okay. Hello, I've been hired to make a live podcast with a similar structure like the Joe Rogan podcast. I hope they're paying you. We have good lighting, good enough sound equipment, a Canon SL3. The client is the one who's going to pay for the remaining equipment, which consists of 2 more DSLRs. He plans to buy 2 Canon T7Is, 1 for Feel World Live Pro switcher, cheapest we found. Why would you get the cheapest switcher? 3 tripods. Does anyone know if the T7i works well with the switcher? If it has HDMI input, then you should be good. I don't know. Don't want the camera HUD to show, which is one of the reasons we bought the SL3 in the first place. But it does not have. From what the T7i has a clean HDMI, but if it does, not have autofocus on? Will this be a problem on the switcher? Okay, so if I gather what this person's asking is that, will their cheap switcher work with their cheap cameras? And the answer is probably. And the reason why they don't want you to have autofocus on is there's probably like an autofocus thing that may come through the HDMI, and then it's no longer a clean HDMI. But I guess I don't really understand the question. Like, will it work? Like, yeah, because if it's a video podcast, you're going to be sitting there. You shouldn't have to worry about focus, and I would turn focus off anyway because it might jitter on you. So like if you know they're going to be sitting and they're going to be kind of in the same place, you would just F5 it. And I mean with a T7i, they're probably getting the kit lenses, so F5 is probably going to be what they have anyway. Put it on F5, and then it should be relatively stable focus for like the middle of any of this, and you should be good. And then the switcher should have clean outputs as long as the camera has a clean output, and then you're good to go. Oh, I feel like that was not a good question. I feel like these questions are getting lower in quality. I want like a good one to end on. So we're at 46 minutes. I feel like 45 minutes is kind of like where the number is before I start losing energy and like stop caring. So let's find a good one to end on. Shooting to always have the option of slow motion. Shooting to always have the option for slow motion. If I were to shoot a music video and always wanted the option for slow motion, could I shoot at 50 FPS at 1/50th shutter speed for a 25 FPS editing timeline? Could you? Yes. Should you? I don't know. I feel like you'd want to be at 1/100. Because I feel like you're going to get more motion blur at that if you're shooting at 50 frames per second with 1/50 shutter speed. When you do slow it down, it'll be right. But I think you still want it at 1/100. Because if you wanted it, so I guess if you wanted it real time, well, so if you knew it was going to be slow motion, it would be fine. But if you didn't know, that's a tricky question. Because if you put it at 1/50th, it'll look fine in slow motion, but it won't look fine at regular speed. But if you put it at 1/100th, it'll look weird in slow motion, but it'll look right at regular speed. So how do you fix that? I don't know. I feel like you should know what kind of shots you want, but I know that's not always an option. I think if I had to pick one, I would pick it to be correct for regular speed. Because unless I knew the whole video was going to be in slow motion, I don't think... Because the other thing is, like, I can't think of when you would use slow motion where you wouldn't know it was going to be in slow motion. Because if they're playing an instrument, it's going to get out of sync, which is fine, I guess. That happens all the time in music videos. But, like, a lot of the time they use it for, like, the effect of a cymbal hit and it's in the rain. And if you're doing that, who fucking cares? Because it's already kind of a cheesy idea. But if you're using it for effect for the narrative portion of a music video, they're like walking down a street and like you need to stretch it for some reason to make them look cool in slow motion. But then I feel like you'd know. So that's my answer. I would shoot it for the correct in regular motion. And then if you even think you might use it in slow motion, make them do it again and adjust it. So you're always shooting correct. Shoot it twice. unless there's some reason you can't, and then flip a coin and just go with it. That would be my advice. So that's what we're going to end on. I don't feel like I was going to end on, but we're going to end on it anyway because we're running out of time. And so that's all I got. If I didn't get to your question, it's because you weren't here. So you can leave a question in the comments down below, and I will answer it next week or the next time I do one of these, because I skip weeks sometimes because no one's watching anyway. And we're just kind of doing this to get the reps in, make some videos, answer some questions. So thank you for watching. See you next time.